was arguably one of the real geniuses in the philosophy history. He was a mathematician, invented calculus along with independently with Newton. In fact, his notations gained acceptance, and the interesting war across the English Channel about who actually invented calculus. I think they both independently invented calculus, and Leibniz, his philosophy led him in that direction. Genius, basically, a genius, invented the calculating machine much better than William Pascal's model. Diplomat. Unfortunately, he didn't publish as much as he could. Partly he wasn't concerned about fame. Partly he has to work for very overbearing rulers. In those days, intellectuals live very good life when you have patrons, like locally, the first Malay to get a position in Oxford, immediately given a tutorship by the Sultan of Perak. They have royal patronage, which we Christians don't have this thing anymore, the good old days. So he was living in the kind of life, and he basically, in the book, Best of All Possible Worlds, he was sent to Paris because France was number one. France was going to chew up Germany. Germany was not united. Germany became one single state only under what's the name of our Bismarck. Before that, it was all small little states. So it was going to be chewed up by France. So he was sent to Paris, and he cooked up this idea. He said, convince the French that Egypt would be a nice target for us, because it will have all the food granary for us. In other words, don't think about invading us, Germany lah. Go and invade Egypt lah. Napoleon took up the idea later, and that's how he got all these artifacts, music artifacts, sent back to France. Anyway, so he was the diplomat. But he was trying to overcome the conflict between the Lutherans, Protestants, and the Catholics. So he was ecumenical. He always was trying to reconcile. His instinct was always to reconcile opposing views, and that's why his quest for a philosophical worldview was also an expression of his quest for a unity of the church, so to say. There was also his endeavor was to recognize perceived conflict between mechanistic science and Christianity. If mechanistic science can predict everything with regularity, what's left of human freedom? What about God's relation to nature? Okay, so in the same, but unlike Descartes, who seemed to focus on nature without reference of God's actual involvement, Leibniz would introduce theological ideas into his philosophy. The crux of his philosophical quest, actually you may want to say, again was this dissatisfaction, like Spinoza, that inanimate nature would somehow have causality. He has to introduce something different, and he's well known for this word called monad, M-O-N-A-D, monadology. Monad means one. Just by the way of interest, Bertrand Russell wrote only on one philosopher, seriously, and that is Leibniz. Although he skewed Leibniz arguments. So anyway, just to put things in the wider perspective, I have this chart which talks about Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz. Sometimes your ideas get clearer in terms of opposition to what you are not. So for Descartes, you have theistic dualism, quantitative duality between mental and physical substance, whereas Spinoza is a quantity monist. Would I call him quality? I mean, quantity I just put. But there is when you say quality, you talk about there's a distinction. But if you take that away, then you talk about what God is. We are part of nature. Only thing God is infinitely bigger than us. For Leibniz, he believes that there is a quantitative pluralist and a qualitative pluralist. Meaning, when you are quantitative pluralist, that means you believe in degree of existence. No. You believe in a more than one substance. When you talk about qualitative pluralist, that means you have different quality. You talk about degree of existence. That's what it amounts to. Many substances differ from one another by degree. A hierarchy of being. I guess if you Google hierarchy of being, the chain of being is the word actually, would be an interesting subject. But if you have dualism, mind body, second middle row in Descartes, he believes that you can have causal relationship between mind and body. Spinoza say there is no difference. They're just different aspects of modification of God, you may want to say. But Leibniz has this parallelism, which is one of the strange ideas that if the fundamental, I will explain that, the most fundamental units are monads, the atoms of nature, by our understanding. Atoms also now you got fundamental particles. The fundamental particle of nature is the monads. But the monads are independent. They do not. The substance cannot be changed. If a substance can be changed, no longer substance. In that sense, so there is no causal relationship between mind and body. But yet we do seem to have. In fact, you don't believe in causal relationship. Let me give you a punch. Okay. So and yet we seem to respond to one another. So it seems that there's a certain parallelism between what we do, but not because there is a causal A causes B, but God has pre-established this harmony. This is a strange idea. Both pre-programmed to skip in step perfectly with one another. Meaning, if I'm programmed to touch you on the shoulder, you're programmed to experience you touching my shoulder. Not because you touch my shoulder, but I've been programmed. Or rather, when you push me, I fall to the ground. It's because you are pre-programmed to push and I'm pre-programmed to fall to the ground. So there's a harmony or coordination. Why? Because substance cannot. But actually, there's a slight qualification. Monads cannot affect one another. But aggregate of monads will assume a different level different existence. Aggregates of monads can affect one another, but monads cannot be affected in one another. Okay, this is the overview first, then we'll go into expound it. Freedom and determinism. Descartes will believe it is an indeterminist. Already all this discussion of freedom and determinism already done centuries before him. Spinoza is a determinist. Everything is rationally, consistently played out by God. Whereas Leibniz, at one level, he is a kind of determinist. Another level, he talks about freedom. Is inclined without compelling. Is the word, the phrase. The forces incline, but they do not compel. So he's a compatibilist. Calvinist will be compatibilist. Okay, I am compatibilist in my understanding of freedom. Libertarian freedom to me is irrational. Not mechanist, but actually to actualize one's inner entelechy. Entelechy is your primary determining force between you, so to say. Okay, entelechy, your governing principle is within you. Rejects mechanistic science as ultimate explanation. Question: what happens when matter and motion cease? What's left? Not matter, but energy. So, in a sense, I will when I deal with monads, I say the way Leibniz talks about the world is that he also believes in the fundamental particle of the universe. But whereas up to the 1960s, maybe or 70s, we can't make sense of how do you envisage what can happen. Because little balls, atomic balls, how they have create force, I can understand how they create pressure in the body lah. I mean, we used to do PV equals nRT, right? Something like that. Very straightforward. Calculate the forces. But if we say what is ultimate in nature is not material but energy. So now in the 20th century, 20 years ago, the people talk about string theory. The fundamental particle is the vibration. Vibrations is energy lah, energy. Maybe Leibniz is correct. Now Leibniz also, you can say preempted holograms. Holograms. You create the film using hologram laser or whatever. And then you break up one part. The one part will always reflect the whole, but different intensity. You take any one part of the hologram, it contains the whole image. Interesting, huh? But it's like in the subatomic monads, it mirrors the whole world. So interesting, lah. But in those days, we don't understand. But now maybe Leibniz is a string theorist, although I don't believe in string theory, lah.
I want to ask about the mind and body, right? Just
yeah.
On the slide before, there's a parallel between the mind and body, right? So if the body dies, will the mind persist?
If the body dies, you have the dispersal of your bodily constituents into its monads. The properties of the when Leibniz answered the question, he would have gone to the Christian. He would give answers at the level of the aggregates. There is this soul in human being. He will talk about it. The soul will persist. You have the soul monad in you.
So the soul,
the stones don't have soul monad. You have the soul monad in you.
So the soul is not the mind.
What's the mind? When you say the soul is not the mind, what's the mind? We are preempting lah. Okay, never mind. If the mind consists of memories, the soul, huh?
The mind is not the soul. It's the soul, isn't it?
Now you're going theology lah. Body, soul, and spirit, whatever it is lah. The soul is not the body, so to say. The soul endures while the body dissolves.
But here he is using mind, right?
Here, where is it? What happens when the matter? Where is it? What about? Mind, body. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Causality between mind and body.
Okay.
But it goes parallel. So it means that if the body dies, it doesn't affect the mind.
The mind as a complex substance. Okay. The aggregate. You see, the monad are simple, but they have a soul monad in each of you. And when you have an aggregate of other properties that I would say with the emergence of the mind along with the body, so the soul monad gathers together other monads to have this brain you have, and inside there the soul monad is the mind, and the mind would affect the mind will move in parallel with the brain states that creates the action. Whereas Descartes would say the mind somehow through the brain affects the body. But if the mind is mental, how can it affect the physical? That's a problem, huh? So you go the pineal gland, which is crazy. You want to acknowledge it, then you say that for Leibniz, the mind, whatever it is, the soul monad that operates the aspect of the soul monad with the mind, does not causally brings about the brain state, and which leads to the action. So they are somehow parallel to one another in a harmonious way.
So the soul is bigger than the mind in Leibniz view?
I mean, depends how you define the mind. Yeah, I mean, what is mind? Mind is awareness of things, right? I mean, you have to go to define because your definition will affect how you reason further. Okay, let me put this. You normally talk about we have a mind. When you die, you got no more mind, and your body disintegrate. The soul monad somehow has, in the natural process, there's an aggregation of this soul monad with other monads, which enables the mind to emerge. I'm just using the word emerge. Without all this, I'm not sure if he answers it in that way. Okay, if the mind is awareness of things, the soul monad, one of the primary qualities of the soul monad is awareness of things. And this awareness of things, awareness of the whole universe actually, is inbuilt into the monad, into the soul monad, such that when it is aggregated with other monads to create these human beings, there is that the manifestation of the human mind. But at the end of the day, the monad's awareness is more than just the human manifestation during a particular human existence. The soul monad has awareness of the whole universe in different perspective. It's a strange theory, but there is a certain logic to it. So I'm not trying to reduce. When you say about mind, you talk about the human mind. You normally means that, but the soul monad is more than the human mind. The soul monad's awareness is of the awareness of the whole universe. But within the human existence, when the human being is created, with the soul monad being the primary directive agency, it works through the human mind. Rather, the human mind there is parallel to the human action in parallelism. Okay, we are jumping the gun up. When we do evangelism, when people ask questions, we all say, okay, wait, after I explain to you the next 5 steps, the question will disappear. That's also a strategy. Okay, that's what we did in evangelism. We used to do evangelism, not in those days, personal evangelism. Okay, so, okay, give me a bit also. Okay, for Descartes, the crux of the matter for Leibniz is this concept of substance. Okay, he opposed Descartes, meaning to say for Descartes, substance is just simply stuff occupying space. By the way, Leibniz has a relational view of space-time, whereas Newton is an absolute view of space-time. To him, space-time is relative. Okay, just in passing. Okay? So he argues that extension is not. So basically, what happened is, what is the fundamental property of matter? Remember, Descartes say thought and extension, fundamental. But Descartes, like we said, no, because now, anytime you have anything that has extension, it means it's divisible. Anything extended can be divisible. Anything can be divisible is not simple. Anything that's not simple is not fundamental. That he said. So he rejected this. So he said, properties of extended. So he said, the ultimate ingredient is not. It's an extension is not a primary property. Extension are properties of substance that have been aggregated together. You might want to say, of composite